Hello, hello. This is Pierre Vidacote working at Planet Technologies. Where are you with Teams? That's the question. Most of the customers I'm working with are in the first stage, first two, the deployed Teams, and the leveraging chat and meetings because of COVID. Obviously, it was very useful. But let's see if the other stage, what they are and how do you feel about it? How do you feel comfortable with it? So deploying, I guess everybody deployed the desktop app and the mobile version maybe not. So think about it. Think about deploying Teams on the mobile, especially for frontline workers, because especially frontline workers are really eager to use Teams, especially chat on their mobile. Also to join the Teams meeting, maybe not to see the content of the meeting, but to be able to listen through their mobile. But are you sure that people are well educated, understand very well how to leverage Teams for chat and meetings? Do you know if they know how to manage their present status? For example, since some of your co-workers are going to go back to the office, or they're going to stay remote, it's going to be an hybrid world. So, for example, I saw some users using their status to enhance the status with "I'm in the office" or which building I'm in. Are you sure people know how to do that? Did you educate them to do that? Are you sure people know how to control their notification? Because it can be very noisy to receive chat notification at mentions. So it's really important to educate end users how to manage that, so they won't be overwhelmed with notifications like they are today with emails. So you don't want to reproduce that or even add on the email notification problem, add the Teams notification problem. So there's some education definitely to be done here. Hopefully you did it. But also, do you see people presenting their PowerPoint presentation correctly? I will say most of the time they don't. Most of the time they share the entire screen, so they cannot see the chat, so they cannot react, they cannot see the faces, they cannot see the reactions. So there are better ways to present a PowerPoint presentation, still being able to see people face, still being able to see the chat messages. And do you know how to manage permissions in meetings? So do you know how to handle, who to put in the lobby, how to allow people to join without going into the lobby only for your organization, stuff like that. And in general, did you define any best practices how to behave in meetings? Do you want people to turn on their web camera? Do you know you have some rules around who can talk when, to avoid people talking on other people, stuff like that. And in general, there are some good practices, best practices to build. At least we have some, but definitely you should build yours regarding your culture. So I think there are some enhancement around the chat meetings, even if you're using it, even if you think you're comfortable, because we've seen a lot of Teams fatigue with back-to-back meetings, and so there's also some governance to be thought through and define what is the cadence of meetings, what is the length of meetings, what is the content of meetings, what is the use of meetings, And do you really need meetings? And what do you do before and after meetings? And what about collaboration? I definitely think that some organizations are using heavily Teams for collaboration. Not, I won't say it's a majority of them. We'll evaluate like that 3% maybe, and probably 30% of users too. And also, when they're using the collaboration in Teams, there's still a lot of unknown, a lot of alignment that are not done because it's new, it's normal. So if people know how to share documents, how to organize the documents, do they know if they know how to co-edit documents and how to comment documents, how to add mention in documents to avoid the conversation in email? Are you sure people know how to add mention, who to add mention, how to not over add mention? Did you define any convention, any Teams code of conduct to collaborate in a team? How do you organize a channel? When do you use a channel rather than a new team? When do you use a private channel? When do you use a group chat? In what case are you using what kind of Teams chat or private channel? That kind of question. How do you name your channels? How do you name your teams? When do you really need a team? So there's so many questions to be addressed, and usually when you deploy Teams for chat and meetings, you don't think about that. And since you often open Teams also for collaboration, people start to create teams without really knowing what to do with it, and some will understand what to do with it, but then there will be some distortion. Some people will use it a way, other people will use it another way, with different naming convention, different organization. So there's going to be some trouble to navigate when you're switching from one team to the other, not understanding what is the right way to work together. So that's a list of questions you can ask yourself and see if you need some improvement there. And another layer that comes often after is you have a good understanding of chats, of meetings, and also for collaboration. Now you can add some apps. Maybe you can add some connector. Maybe you can start to use some bots. So do you know what kind of bot? Do you want to develop a bot? Do you want to use a bot already made? Do you want to develop an app? Do you want to use Dataverse? And so basically Power Apps and Power Automate for Teams, and develop a process to send automatically I don't know, for example, a message in Teams regarding something that happened in your mailbox or something external. For example, I'm going to give you an example I developed, and I shared my video on YouTube. So every time I create a video on my YouTube channel, I was used to manually going to our Teams. We have a team to share knowledge, share my YouTube video, and now I automated every time I put something in YouTube. There's Power Automate sees it automatically and publish it in the team. I don't have anything to do, it's done automatically. So there's so many processes you can automate like that. And you can also build apps, dedicated apps, so you can have a power apps that can be embedded in Teams with a certain, you enter data, and then it push workflow. For example, I developed a small app and I shared that also on my YouTube channel. It was just to try it out. So you're arriving at your work, you have your mobile, you launch Team, you have a channel where you get into the building, and there's an app. The app asks you a few questions about if you're protected against COVID, and the app has a camera, and you show your face, and if it doesn't detect a mask on you, it will say you're not allowed to get into the building. That was just for trying some AI component in Power Apps that you can integrate in Teams. But basically you can develop whatever process you want, even if you don't need Teams, but you can integrate them in Teams. So did you do that? That's another effort. Usually you start to understand how you use Teams, and then you can start to build some apps or integrate existing apps. You can look for existing apps, because sometimes you have apps that are provided by software company. For example, if you're using Salesforce, there's an app to integrate Salesforce. If you're using Kronos, there's an app to integrate Kronos. So you should look at that to see if you want to integrate that, and avoid the double management in different environment, and have everything integrated into Teams. Because, and I will suggest you to wait that people start to work very often in Teams, so they expect new apps. They expect to have all their work in Teams, because now you have almost everything in Teams. You have your collaboration environment, you have your chat, your meetings, your documents, your personal documents. You have access to your OneDrive. You can integrate SharePoint sites, your intranet. You can, even with a small app, you can integrate your Outlook. So it's a one-stop shop. That's the benefit of Teams, and everything can be in context. So this is really powerful. So take a look at that, and you can develop your own apps. So that's pretty powerful, because you can deploy your own process within Teams. What is the velocity of your team? Some customers, but there are rare, allow everybody to create a team. But the risk with that is to create some chaos, a lot of teams, and often without respecting any naming convention, and after a while it's a mess. So sometimes there's, on the other spectrum, there's, I want to control everything, so you have to go through a process, and we as IT will create the team, and in between, in general, there's a compromise where some people can't create a team. But so, are you able to create a team in less than an hour? Can you commit to that? Because that's the velocity of the business. The business is requiring to be really autonomous and very, very efficient. When they have a need, they want to have the solution really quickly. Also, do they have, when they create a team, do they have to recreate all the channels that they used to create when they, for example, you're working on a project team, you always have same organization, same structure, same folders, same tabs. Did you ever think about providing templates, maybe not for all the teams, but for the teams that are recurring, same kind of teams? So you're having teams for committees, you probably have the same structure. You have teams for project, you probably have the same structure. And the templates also can be automated, so you can add automation. For example, a good example is if you have projects that are connected to a customer. If you have a CRM, every time a customer is created in your CRM, you can create a team, automated creation of a team. And every time there's a project for this customer, you can create a channel in this team with a reference to the CRM, and maybe create automatically a project web app to start to organize the project and so on, and the folders and so on. So you can do that. You can automate a lot of things. That's what we do actually at Planet from Dynamics, and it is our life because everything is created. We just have to focus on the work and maybe adjust a little bit. So what is the next question? Are you able to create documents with the most skilled people as soon as they are available without any email conversation? That's a good question. Do you see still people using email? I guess it's a good insight. If you don't see the number of emails decreasing, that means Teams is not fully used or fully understood. So really, it's really key to educate people, even if you need to be bold, to say no more email. Email is only for external communication. Whenever it's internal, use chat if it's one-to-one or one-to-a-few, and use a team if there's a project or something you're talking about, a common purpose. There should be a team. So check that. If it's not the case, that means you need to educate more, build some governance, communicate around this governance, and probably leverage champions to do that. What about creativity? So, do you see people throwing ideas? Do you have some teams where people can share ideas about the business? Do you see a good way to see that? Do you have teams with whiteboards where people can brainstorm, share ideas, draw things, collaborate together, be transparent? Do you use often survey to gather feedback in teams and share the results? What I'm usually doing, I'm using this survey capability to ask when I work with a customer, to ask the customer team or extended team what project name they want. So first, it's not a survey, it's a question. So people draft ideas, name of the project, and when we have enough answers, we make a survey out of it, and we survey them, and we pick up transparently what had the most answers. So it's transparent. Everybody feels in a way responsible. It's everybody can weigh in, and the best is chosen. So that's also it should enable creativity, that kind of creativity. Also, in a very dynamic environment, I will say we'll see more initiatives thanks to Teams. It's not only about the tool, but it's about the governance, the leadership, the education, a lot of factors that lead to more innovations, more initiatives. So do you see new teams being created to develop new business? to brainstorm, to be more creative, think about new business, to gather people who have knowledge and let them brainstorm and find new ideas and express new way of doing business. Does it bring more transparency, more people? Do people feel confident to share some ideas without feeling being silly or judged? So that's a good, also a good measurement. If you don't see that, it's not just about the tool here. It's mostly about the way you communicate, incarnate, align people, and make them feel comfortable to be part of the business, part of success, and sharing new ideas. It's good to have a team where you can let people express themselves. It's better if you have a social network to do that, but if you don't, teams can be a good candidate for that. What about engagement? So we see that with COVID, there's a rise in mental health problems, and because social distance, meeting fatigues, being far is complicated for people, not understanding the purpose. So why not leveraging Teams to create this engagement? So for example, do you have virtual happy hours where you don't discuss about the work, but you let people discuss about what they like? Just imagine the small talk you don't have when you're remote. You need to have this small talk somewhere. So either you're gonna organize it, like through virtual happy hours, or through, informal meetings between people, between managers. But having some virtual happy hours is it's fun first. For example, at Planet we organized several ones, and one was we had some sort of game party where we played game together. We were competing. There was an app that you can add into Teams where it's a quiz, so you have a question and you need to answer fast, and you're ranked, and at the end there's a winner. So it's fun. You can play that quiz around music, around movies, around whatever you want. So it's create some room for talking about something else than work, and also we had virtual happy hours to present teams. So each team in our company had his own hour where they present themselves, and every member will present himself, because we are a fast-paced hiring company. So there's new people all the time, so we don't know them. There's so many projects. We might bump into one or two people working on a project, but sometimes we don't know them. And even if we if we work with them during a project, we don't have time to discuss personal things. So here, it's a good way to create a link between us, and knowing people better on a different angle. Once again, you don't have this small talk, so it's a way of doing that. So definitely Teams can be leveraged. It's a matter of will, organization, leadership too, because it has to be supported by the leadership. So do you do that? And are you aligned? I guess this is the number one problem of every organization. Whatever the environment, technical environment is, it's hard to align. It's even harder with COVID, remote work, and definitely teams can help here. Team can help, but it's not only teams, it's how you organize them, how you educate people on teams, how you convince people to work the same way. Working together is the hardest thing to do. Collaborating is the hardest thing to do. That's why people are using Outlook still, because they like to have control on how they organize things. And when you're working in a team, it's all about compromise. Collaborating is all about compromise and alignment. It's better when you know how to work together, what is the best way to work together, even if you can adjust from time to time, but if you have some guidance on how to work together, so you can look if you're aligned. Probably if you have only private team, that means people are secret, they don't want to share, there's no alignment. If you have a lot of private channel, that means people don't share some information, there is no alignment. I'm not saying everything should be public, but by default it should be public, and there's some exceptions all the time. So, you know, alignment is also a matter of top management engaging in a two-way discussion. Do you have that in place? It's important for people to be able to ask questions, get feedback, have a discussion, public discussion with management. Is your culture mature enough to do that? That's what Microsoft is doing in Yammer, not Teams. But if you don't have Yammer, once again, you can leverage Teams for that. It's not the best place, but why not? Do you feel there's enough transparency between the people? Do you feel the process are well understood, well aligned? Do you feel, once again, do you feel a good way to measure alignment is to see if the communications are coming through Teams or are still going into Outlook? Because Outlook is excluding, you know, it's only through people who are in the email. And if 3 months after the first email somebody's coming, it won't see the context of the conversation. If it comes to Teams, it will see the context. So really the alignment effort is mostly where I will think the focus has to be. And this is a rinse and repeat process. You need to explain and re-explain and adjust, because you know sometimes you have an idea how you should work together, and then you find out might be a better way, or there might be some exceptions, or might be different use cases that you might want to change it. But over communicate around alignment, and this has to go through dialogue, and Teams is a good place to have a dialogue. So finally, do you think that Teams can help you to achieve your goals? Ask you this simple question. What are your goals first? Not everybody is asking this question. What are your goals? And see how Teams can connect to or help to achieve these goals. Definitely if you feel overwhelmed with Teams, and I know a lot of people feel overwhelmed with Teams. I know people who are part of hundreds of active teams. If they question themselves about, does he help the organization to achieve the goal? They might say yes because maybe he's the process, they're on top of things, but probably not. Probably it's the expression of being in a culture where you want to microcontrol everything. Why do you want to be in one of your teams? What is the reason? There's probably lack of leverage, lack of trust. You don't have to be everywhere. And especially if you have a good alignment, if you're not part of something, of some discussion, if you're not part of a team, doesn't mean you cannot catch up after. It only needs somebody to align with you and connect you on the subject at one point and say, okay, you're not part of the team, I add you to the team and ask you this question for this. But you don't have to follow 100 teams, and I have probably 50 teams, but I'm active in only a few because I can only do a few things at once. I'm just following the team that are active. It's my common activities, and some other that are more about knowledge, where I go from time to time to discover knowledge. So I think that's it. I tried today my microphone, my son's microphone, and this new feature in Teams where I can overlay myself. You see my picture behind the PowerPoint to present this, hierarchy of the Maslow pyramid of teams, if I can say so. But what I can see clearly, teams, it's more than a journey. You think that you're finished, you think you deploy teams because people are using meeting and chat and you're over it, but you're just scratching the surface, and even with that you're missing some points. So I will encourage everybody to review all those questions and think about it and have a strategy about it. You don't have to do everything at once, but you can progress, you can iterate. There's room for improvement with Teams, and since Teams is evolving all the time, there's new services. There will be more stuff coming for sure. But have this framework in mind to build your future of improving your organization collaboration environment, which has to revolve around Teams for sure. But it's not the tool. It's not about a tool. It's about how you leverage the tool, how you're working with the tool, how you organize your processes, your team around the tools. It's once again, the most complicated things is to collaborate, because collaboration is about compromise. And when you talk about compromise, it involves people with different characters, with different ways of thinking. So often we avoid the source of conflict, which is people, but also it's a source of energy and success. It's only the first asset of a company is our people. So you need to really think about those topics and build a strategy. And that's what I do. That's what I do with a lot of customers, helping them. I'm not doing all the steps. Little by little, we're building a strategy to not attain this vision, but at least target this vision and follow this path. I hope this video was useful to you.